right, good morning, karibu sana. It is a feel-good Friday right here. And you know, many people are very confused. Today, to some, it feels like a Monday because yesterday was a holiday. But karibu sana, this is a morning cafe. You know how we do every Friday. Feel-good Friday. My name is Fred Indimuli.
Oh yes, I'm usually Stanley Nyerinkiti. It's a feel-good Friday most definitely. And you're going to be having Syrian dancers pulling the whole legs and on the ones and twos. Wakituonyesha how to do all that. Yes, definitely DJ Granite, the turntablist himself, and I make sure Fred Akuman's a fiti sana.
I tell you.
Yes.
Is it on a dance too?
Manze, and
Of
then
course,
dancing
that,
to the political tunes as well.
State of the nation, big discussions, of course. The Deputy President still on all the front pages this morning. We'll be looking at that. Daniel Manduku, MP Nyaribari Masaba, Titus Lote, MP Kachiliba, Wilson Sosion, former MP, and political analyst Josephat Kamanya will be in studio for this conversation. You don't want to miss this. What next after the National Assembly impeached the Deputy President, and where is the conversation heading?
Yes.
Sai watu wanaongea kuhusu replacement.
Yes,
I'm telling you, people move on very fast. Na hata kesi jaisha.
Even before the impeachment, one of the dailies had already started putting up some names.
Okay.
Yes. And speaking of the dailies, just to take a look at, just peruse what the headlines are on different dailies, locally as well as regionally. Start off with the Star because smart people read the Star.
Mount Kenya MPs ditched Gachagua at key hour, of course. Tunajua nani alivote, yes, nani alivote, no.
Hata wameka the numbers.
Yes. Ruku. The only man who can save Gachagua, at least now, and I'm shocked the picture of the former president, Uhuru Kenyatta, is here. Can he really save Rigathi Gachagua? You know, now people have been unearthing all the videos from back in the day when Gachagua was really speaking against the former president. And listening to them,
Yes.
On the Standard,
DPs fight back. They talk about inside Karen Nerve Center and what is really happening in his current residence right now.
And that's a rare picture of the current. We are used to seeing State House.
Yeah, by the way.
And me, by the way, kama ingekuwa mimi by now ningekuwa nishahama. I don't think I would be spending any more time there. But yes,
I also
it is his nerve center for his defense.
I also love the choice of photo because when you look at others, he was ila ameweka mikono juu nini sahi amenyenyekea.
Ametulia sasa.
He
is subdued.
Yes.
Yeah. The Daily Nation talks about a phone call, a special phone call that lasted less than a minute.
Yes.
Ruto's call and failed attempts to save Gachagua will be telling you ilikuwa inasema nini. But what would a call that lasts less than a minute, even
60 seconds,
less than 60 seconds, even convey?
What can you say?
What do you think he told him?
Pambana na hali yako.
Nilikwambia, my friend, mambo ni matatu.
There's so much to say and there's so little to say in 60 seconds.
Skiza, nilikwambia nini?
Yes.
Ukakata kusikiza mimi?
Yes.
Pambana na hali yako.
And if true, because that happened Monday morning, that could have led to what he did on Monday evening.
Yes.
Calling for the press briefing.
Because they say after that call, ndo alijua bas.
I am alone.
Imeenda. Matters business, property auction surge as defaults hit 674 billion shillings.
Yes.
Wow.
This is an upsurge from last year. The non-performing loans zinaendelea kuongezeka. Uko pale umeka ulichukua loans nyingi, ukafungua garage yako ya magari.
Biashara nyingi zimechukua loan lakini pesa hingi.
Yes.
They're saying soft economy and costly credit spur distress. Yes, banks step up recovery efforts. So that's why when you open the dailies, unapata zile pages za kule nyuma auctions. They're quite a number and it's very distressing for our nation.
We'll be back to tell you that in Uganda now the cleanest front page. Tulisahau Taifa Leo.
Alikataa patanisho, ndo habari kuu pale kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo. Ni kama sisi hatuna hiyo. Lakini tutarudi ndio hiyo, alikataa patanisho.
Ndio hiyo ulikuwa unasema mambo ni mangapi?
Unaona hiyo ndio hiyo. That must have been the content of that phone call. Mambo ni matatu, my friend, nilikwambia nini?
The choice of photos.
Nilikwambia my boss,
Mambo ni
ngapi? Pambana hali yako. I tell you. Anyway, let's cross over to Uganda.
Yes.
And they talk about, I think they're still unpacking their numbers from the census. So the big story on the front page of the Daily Monitor, born to rent, priced out of ownership. And they say the dream of building a decent home is rapidly becoming a distant fantasy for many Ugandans. As construction costs skyrocket, budgets have been battered and bruised, giving many the harsh reality that they may never own a home. Wow.
I love this front page today.
So yes,
Gives
mitaa ya
you,
mabanda
yes.
ndio wanaonyesha pale. So most people in Uganda may never get to own a home. That's a big headline on the Daily Monitor.
This, even as the census showed, the numbers are increasing.
And I think this is depressing because we always get some positive news from Ugandan dailies now, and they talk about born to rent. Anyway, let's take a look at the new vision.
From matters home renting to matters land leasing, this is the front page of the new vision. Still in Uganda, it talks about government sets tough rules on land deals. It is a conversation that has been going on matters land leasing. Online system to monitor all purchases as well as fight corruption. I hope to see this happening in Kenya. The whole maswala ya land, the online
digitization
systems
of the land registry.
Yes.
At least there they've started. Hapa Kenya hiyo bado ni
iko lakini
it's a pipe dream.
We had to see how big of a deal it is. We're back to the Mwananchi.
Wamerudi, nafikiri walirudishiwa leseni. So tuangazie gazeti la Mwananchi kule Bongo, masuala ya Tanzania. Wanasema tamu chungu za mikopo mitaani. Waathirika wenye viti wa mitaa wasimulia mazito yanayowapitia. Maofisa wa mikopo nao wafichua wanavyoingizwa mjini na wadaiwa. So kuna wale Shylock.
Yes.
Wanakopesha watu mitaani. Na sasa wanasema pia wanaingizwa mjini wanaopeana mikopo. Wenye wanakopa wanaoingiza mjini. Unajua wanamaanisha nini? Wanawapenya, wanawahepa.
So ini their version of mchezo wa tauni.
Wanaingizwa, nikikwambia na kuingiza mjini, ujue you party. Ndakufunza, ndakuingiza mjini. So masuala ya mikopo kule Tanzania yanapewa kipaumbele kwenye gazeti hili la Mwananchi. Habari nyingine pale, mawaziri wa Samia na staili ya kushambulia miguu yote. Whatever they're trying to say. On the Citizen,
they go the very, very interesting conversation here. So listen to this. How a wider Middle East conflict could affect you. You as someone, so they not only focus on Tanzania, but they also generalize into Kenya as well as Uganda, into the general East Africa. They talk about a war between Israel and Iran, which could potentially spread to Lebanon, Yemen, Syria, and Iraq, will send the cost of living spiraling in East Africa, according to experts on page 2 of that.
So yes, that is quite worrying. You may think that whatever is happening in the Middle East has no effect on you. But this paper, The Citizen in Tanzania, tells you, nope. Ikiendelea
inaweza fika.
Unajaribu tunaambiwa turudi kwa Mwananchi. Inamaanisha that the entire East Africa will be affected because the way things are going, it doesn't look like they're about to stop anytime now. Someone was talking about the figures in Tanzania. Up here, kuna watu wanabet na kuna wati jackpot ni 1.2 trillion shillings. Hiyo ukipata, kama ingekuwa pesa za Kenya, unaweza fund at least 30 or 40% of our budget.
Inakuja about 50 something million.
58 million shillings jackpot ndio, well, not bad, but trilioni 1.2.
Yes. That is how the local as well as regional dailies are looking like. We'll be back to take a look at Izuza Kenya. Today we start off with the weather in Meru, and we're going to be looking at not only for today but also over the weekend how things are going to be looking like. If you're in Meru, worry not. It's going to be a very, very hot day for you. Highs of 26 over the weekend, highs of 27. It's a very nice day to do your...
Naona next week kutakuwa na mvua Meru, lakini leo,
oh yes,
leo hakuna.
By the way, next
sunny
week,
day. Next week kuanzia Tuesday towards Friday, I think there'll be
anza kununua gumboots na mwavuli. Yes.
Tuende Busia.
Into the western region, right now it's 19 degrees, cloudy, and some light showers. This is actually above average, 50%. Alafu kutaanza kunyesha ukifika saa 4 asubuhi. 5.6 millimeters, that is definitely going to be raining. But then over the weekend, worry not, it's going to be a hot day for you. Highs of 27 and 28. Next week pia, kutoka kunanyesha.
All right. Tuende Makueni.
Makueni, angalia pia Machakos, but then Makueni na Machakos wamekaribiana. I'll be telling you why Machakos in a few. In Makueni, highs of 31 degrees Celsius. It's nice kind of weather. Precipitation tuangalie itakuwa 0.0 millimeters.
And because you want to take a look at, I think the weekend weather is
Yes.
what is more important there. Highs of 31.
Yes,
Yeah, so jua itakuwa imewaka proper,
most definitely.
which is a very good weather for something interesting coming up in Machakos.
In Kilifi, 24 degrees Celsius right now, and this is going to itakuwa imebaki hapo tu, inaongezeka kidogo 29 during the day. Over the weekend, expect some light showers if you're in Kilifi.
Holiday weather.
Yes. County 047, the city under the sun, 16 degrees right now. Cloudy, this expect to increase as high as 26 degrees Celsius. No rainfall today, yes, 0.0 millimeters. Over the weekend, uko sawa sawa, highs of 26 and 27 over the weekend. I was telling you about Machakos. So first off, in our diary, starting off today, the Safari Sevens is happening. And TV47 is official media partner, going to be broadcasting these games. Some interesting games there. Let me just read for you what is going to be happening there. So first off, going to be having, this competition is happening at the Jomo Kenyatta Stadium. So Shujaa will be facing Zimbabwe, Lions, Qatar, and Varsity Select in Pool A. And then Morans, Kenya Harlequin, Uganda, Shogun, and Red Whalers in Pool B. And then for the ladies category, they'll be playing in what is called a round-robin format. So this is where each player or team competes against each other, basically. So we're going to be having that, something very interesting. That is happening in Machakos. Stick around right here at the home of Untold Stories. Tutakuwa tunakuonyesha hizi game zote live. From Kenya and from Machakos all the way to Cameroon. Cameroon will be hosting Harambee Stars. The first leg AFCON qualifiers. It's going to be big because Cameroon it's said that Cameroon wanatuogopa on this game. Yes, yes.
Wanatuogopa?
Yes. So wait to see how that is going to be played. And then for the return leg, it's going to be played on Monday in Uganda. Well, because Kenya can't host this particular matches. From Matters Sports, today is the International Day of the Girl Child. So shout out to all the girl child and to all the girls out here. Yes.
Oh, yes. International Day of the Girl Child.
Yes, to everyone. And then an update of the Mombasa blogger who was allegedly sexually assaulted. So the fate of Mombasa County lands CEC, Mohammed Hussein, now lies in the hands of the DPP. This is after DCI concluded the investigations yesterday. So we definitely expect more updates even today from the DPP as well as from the Mombasa residents on this particular bit. That is just a nutshell of what is expected in our news diary as well as our digital platforms. Today in History?
Yes, let's get Today in History.
Today in History. On October 11, 2002, Jimmy Carter was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his significant contributions to peace and democracy through his work in various humanitarian efforts and diplomatic initiatives. The Nobel Committee stated that Carter's decades of untiring effort to find peaceful solutions to internal conflicts, to advance democracy and human rights, and to promote economic and social development justified the award. This recognition further solidified Carter's legacy as a prominent figure in peace advocacy long after his presidency.
All right, turejelea hapa nyumbani tuangalie magazeti. And we start off with the Star, because smart people read the Star. Mount Kenya MPs ditched Gachagua at key hour. Gesema at hour of need. 40 lawmakers voted for his impeachment, with only 19 voting against the motion. You remember when they were actually in Nyahururu, there were 48 who made a declaration that they would that they supported a different person as a Mount Kenya kingpin. So you'd have expected that probably the 48 the same number would play out, but it appears that Rigathi Gachagua managed to convince a few people to join his side. But yes, 40 lawmakers voted for his impeachment, with only 19 voting against the motion. That's a big story there, and it's on pages 4 and 5. So they talk about how Mount Kenya MPs aided DP Gachagua's downfall. At least 40 Mount Kenya MPs voted to impeach Gachagua. It has emerged as the DP enters what could be a point of no return in his political career. And they have a list of who voted against Gachagua.
Yes.
Ay, of course, wameanza na ule wa Kikuyu.
Imagine you're the deputy president and you're reading the Star this morning.
Yes. Anajua ni nani. Hii mpaka gazeti nakuambia hawa ndo wakulike. Huyu ndo alikuangusha. Huyu, by the way.
Yeah.
Here's your downfall. Haiti PM in Kenya for more support to battle gangs is there. The Prime Minister for Haiti, it's called Garrick Cornell, is there with Prime CS Musalia Mudavadi on a 4-day official visit in Kenya. So atakuwa around for a while. This weekend you go around. Other quick highlights on this paper: how Kenya Kwanza election poll deal left some political bigwigs empty-handed. Elsewhere, cash looms over new bill barring unions from collecting agency fees. And finally, and this is a story that is causing quite some distress, taxi driver Victoria Muloki was battered before being strangled to death. Autopsy results show. It's a very sad story.
Yes.
It's there on page 16 of the Star today.
Yes. On the Siasa pullout, they ask, will the next Mount Kenya leader stand up? Yes.
On the Siasa pullout, they have images there of so many people. Let me get that one, because I know this is. They have pictures of Kithure Kindiki, Anne Waiguru, Irungu Kang'ata, Ndindi Nyoro, and former President Uhuru Kenyatta. Will the next Mount Kenya leader stand up? With the odds stacking up against DP Gachagua, succession battles are quietly going on in the Mount Kenya region. Niliona story flani wanasema ati it's definitely going back to Mount Kenya. If at all Gachagua is removed, he definitely narudi huko. Nakwambia kwa siasa. It's never guaranteed.
Even 1 minute is a very long time. Ask the deputy president.
That's why that phone call from the president that was less than 60 seconds must have communicated a lot. That's a Star. On the People Daily,
the only man who can save Gachagua, speaking of the former President Uhuru Kenyatta, as well as President William Ruto, and the now AUC chair candidate, Raila Odinga. Silent majority, they say. The three leaders have been loudly silent, but they hold impeached DP's fate in their hands as he faces their troops in the Senate to fight for his political soul next week on Wednesday.
But if you look at these three gentlemen, who do you really think can save the DP?
Starting off with the gentleman in the middle, you remember there's a time everyone was invoking his name. Before you start your sentiments, you'd say, Uhuru Kenyatta alisema. Niliongea na Uhuru Kenyatta akasema.
Uhuru Kenyatta ndo alinipigia
akaniambia.
So niende niongee na Ruto.
So sahi sijui kama kuna hiyo bado ya.
Amesema mimi by the way I'm too busy. I'm on holiday.
Let me enjoy my leave. Yes. For President William Ruto, that one minute phone call?
That's a done deal.
Yes. We haven't heard from Raila Odinga now.
This gentleman, I think, is too busy with his campaigns.
Yes.
So if these are the only people who are supposed to save DP Gachagua,
this list needs to be added now.
I think it's going to be a very long week for him next week.
Ama Twitter Obasanjo.
Huyo ndo amekuwa akisave watu. Or Museveni.
Yes.
All right. Why law on suicide is hurting the vulnerable. That's a story on page 14. There's been always this contention about whether attempted suicide should be punished. According to Kenyan laws, yes, if you attempt suicide and you're caught, ni mali ya serikali, hawezi jitoa tu hivyo. Tukae hapa tunaumia sisi wote pamoja.
This comes on the backdrop of the World Mental Health Day, which was yesterday. Ukiwa pale nyumbani, unaendeleaje by the way? Ask yourself that question. Am I really well this particular morning? Uliza neighbor wako hapo kando. Uko sawa leo? Fred, uko sawa?
Mimi niko sawa.
Okay.
Uko poa?
Mimi niko poa. You know, yesterday they were also talking about how in work spaces, it is one of the enablers of the poor kind of mental health for someone. So, unaweza kuwa unafanya kazi hapa na mtu na kumbe they're not really well.
Yes. I know workspaces are can get very toxic.
Yes.
And that's one of the burdens that is actually aggravating mental health. That's a story on the People Daily. Let's take a look at more politics on the front page of the Standard. DP fights back inside Karen Nav Center. And you know he's still riding in that big deputy president's entourage, convoy with sirens, sometimes even outriders. And it's a very long convoy. And I was talking to someone who was saying, if I was him, I would start getting used to dropping these trappings of power. The sooner...
And all these benefits.
The earlier, the better for you. Because Zoya Mapema, because they disappear like this. So after shock impeachment by MPs and an impending Senate trial, Rigathi Gachagua has hunkered down in his current residence with the best political, legal and communication minds to fine-tune his arsenal that involves an aggressive defense and offensive in parliament, courts and political arena. So yes, the picture there of that current residence where he is hunkered down, but will it really be consequential? That's a big question people are asking.
And even speaking of the whole entourage, I'm wondering, because there's a national holiday coming up, the Mashujaa Day. So how will the protocol be followed?
Thing is, if things go the way ninaona ikienda, by Mashujaa Day, Rigathi Gachagua will not be deputy president.
So we'll be
I think that's the plan.
So we'll be having someone else inviting the president.
I think the Prime CS will invite the president.
Some interesting bits to wait up for right here.
Other quick highlights on the front page of the Standard this morning. Why KRA is targeting M-Pesa, till and pay bill. Watu wamekasirika sana. Hii mumepatikana sasa. If you're running a business and you have a pay bill or till number, sasa the government is coming for you. KRA wamesema wewe ni mfanya biashara, you have to pay taxes. So you have to receipt for all this money is coming in so that you can say, okay, fine, expenditure, balance, so this is what I'm supposed to pay.
Kwani KRA or to trust? See, I thought we were in a good relationship.
Nakere, sawa sana. Matters education, schools financial crisis threatens national exams. They say head teachers are warning that a looming financial crisis in schools could disrupt KCSE and KIPSEA national administration, set to begin in 3 weeks' time. Unajua tunakaribia November, na November ndio shida inakuanga. Yesterday, principals warned that without government support, things may grind to a halt, potentially affecting the over 2.2 million candidates. Remember, this year we do not have KCPE, but there's KIPSEA and there's KCSE kama kawaida.
That is the standard. Yes. Well, Rafael Nadal, he's a tennis star, hung his boot. Yes.
Okay.
He's retired. The number of players who are retiring squeezy. On the front page of Daily Nation, they say Ruto's call and failed attempts to save Gachagua. So listen to this. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua received an important call on Monday morning as he was preparing for his address to the National Assembly during his impeachment proceedings the following day. On the line was his boss, President William Ruto. It took less than a minute for the president to pass his message. At the end of the call, it was clear to the DP that he was on his own. Fred, I'm wondering, you see how you always anticipate that phone call from an interview that you were hoping. Alafu ilikuwa missed call, for example. So was it a missed call, then he called back? Alipewa simu shika, unapigiwa na one of his handlers. And then how did that phone call start?
And I'm thinking he must have looked at that phone ringing.
Yes.
And wondering, should I pick it?
Pick it. Nikikosa.
Is this the call that will save me?
Yeah.
Within 60 seconds, akajua, hii imeenda. But you remember there was a lot of pressure for the deputy president to actually resign.
Yes.
And that's the one thing he talked about even in his address to the nation that evening, Monday evening, after this phone call.
And he laughed it off.
And he said, I'm not resigning. So that could have been a part of the discussion that probably if you want to save yourself politically, this is an option for you.
Yes.
Leave now and you can have some space.
Yes.
If you don't, then unfortunately, mambo itaendelea.
And just to paraphrase what he was talking about that Monday evening, he was saying, some people close to me have been sent to talk to me nicely to resign. So that really alludes to what was in that 1-minute phone call.
Interesting. International Day of the Girl Child features there on the front page of the Daily Nation as well. So you say Voices of the Future. So this is Today being the International Day of the Girl Child, so from rural villages to urban schools, these young girls are defying societal norms. So they have pictures of quite a number of 8 girls who are, despite facing challenges like poverty, early marriage and gender stereotypes, they demonstrate remarkable resilience using education and technology as tools to shape their futures and inspire their communities. It's a special 12-page pullout inside the Daily Nation today. That story of the taxi driver, very sad story, revealed taxi driver was beaten and strangled. This is a Mombasa taxi driver, Victoria Mombua Muloki, who was repeatedly hit with a blunt object on the head before being strangled. The post-mortem report shows. And the suspect just says he was interested in the car.
Yes, and the man in custody has been linked to several other killings.
Any gari tu anataka.
Wow.
More than half of private hospitals are yet to register on SHA portal. That's another problem that people are not talking about. People wanaumia kila mahali huku Kenya, lakini sisi tunashughulika na 60-second phone calls.
Yes.
But anyway, days of our lives.
On Business Daily, what we were talking about earlier, property auctions surge as defaults hit 674 billion cash shillings. And they talk about how the non-performing loans have risen from last year, about 600 and... let me get it right. So in July, 621.3 billion cash shillings, up to all the way to 657 and hitting a record of 674.9 billion Kenyan shillings. This story is covered on page 2. But then there's a very interesting story on the ticker. First off, how Bolt, Uber plan to bar rogue drivers. If you frequently use these taxi hailing apps, ride-hailing firms, including Bolt and Uber, are working on a common system that will see errant drivers suspended or locked out of all the apps in a push to improve passenger safety. And the conversations that I've had with a number of people who use this, let's say mostly even in the evening, they are fearful of using this, some of these apps.
It's actually a security issue.
Yes, they hold in security issue. So wait to see how that will transform.
All right. Tuangazie masuala ya karakacha sasa, tukimalizia review ya magazeti asubuhi ya leo.
Gazeti ya Taifa Leo.
Taifa Leo tuliangalia, lakini walisema tu atafanya nini?
Ndio hiyo.
Alikataa patanisho. Nani alikataa? Rais alikataa kupatanishwa.
Yes.
So wanasema gavana wa Nyeri asema viongozi wa kidini walitaka kutatua tofauti kati ya rais na naibu wake, lakini rais akakataa. Na akamwambia mambo ni matatu, my friend. Kama hujasikia mambo ni matatu, ya kwanza ufanye hivi, ya pili hiyo nyingine wewe unaelewa.
Yes.
Bas.
Sakaja yuko pale katika front page ya Taifa Leo. Mtu wasema kundi kotini kutaka kaunti ya Nairobi kufungua tena bustani ya Uhuru Park.
Why has it remained closed 2 years on? That's a mystery. Anyway, masuala ya karakacha leo tunaanza na Daily Nation, the cartoon there. They're talking about the Adani deals. And there's this gentleman who looks like he's just fresh from India. Amekuja, milango imevunjika huku. Anaangalia jamaa huko ndani gizani, anamwambia usijali. We are still on. Just a bit of housekeeping going on. So usijali, hata ukisikia kelele yote, Adani deal is still there. Mulifikiria ati mkienda parliament impeach Gachagua anything changes. No. Adani bado iko hapo. It's just housekeeping. Tunafagia nyumba. And this is what was happening yesterday, and this whole confusion. Was it Utamaduni Day, Huduma Day?
So for the first time now, Kenyans celebrated Mazingira.
Yes.
Okay, now they went with Mazingara Day, but it should really be Mazingira Day. And they give you a whole evolution of how this holidays have been, and mostly for the pocket of the common mwananchi.
So when it was Moi Day,
at least
there was something kwa mfuko. Utamaduni Day ama Huduma Day, pande moja ilikuwa imeisha, but one pocket inakaa bado iko kitu. Mazingira Day, boss, hakuna. There's nothing. Days of our lives.
Inakaa uniform ya NYS ama mimi naona.
Sasa hii ni mazingira, so it's green. And finally, the sinking Titanic. This is a cartoon on the People Daily, Stano's take. And you can see someone who's drowning there. And even the crown is back on the mountain, but he's going to lose it. It would appear it's not on his head. It's no longer on his head. It's now on top of the mountain. Meanwhile, the gentleman here is actually drowning. And
who will save him?
You can't help but feel for him sometimes. When you see someone and everyone turn against one person, it invokes some very sad feelings. in so many people. There's a lot of sympathy towards him right now, but will sympathy be enough to save him? That's a cartoon on the People Daily. We'll be looking at this and a lot more. A lot of other discussions with my panelists immediately after the break on State of the Nation. Josephat Kamanya, Daniel Manduku, Wilson Sosion, and another gentleman, remind me. One more person will be on that panel, so do stand by for that conversation. Yes, and of course you can be part of this conversation through our social media pages. Yes. Titus Lote and Pika Chiliba will also be joining us for this conversation, so do stand by for that. You can be part of the conversation on X at TV47 News, on Facebook, TV47 Kenya, and my X handle is at Fred Indimuli. But it's a Feel Good Friday.
Yes, most definitely. We'll be having some dances coming your way, so anza kutuambia unataka DJ ya kuchezee nini. DJ Granite will be on the 1s and 2s, 3s and 4s, and we'll also be trying and linking up with Bansi. She's all the way in Kisumu. Yes, and also just taking a look at what things are happening in Machakos. Tutakuwa tunakuambia hizo Safari Sevens and the whole rugby kind of action as well.
So life does continue.
Yes.
We'll be back after the break.
Hey there friends, welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism, how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m. The Grind, where business meets brilliance. It's not just about the ideas.
I was working as a shampoo boy. I used to wash clients' hair on the sink.
It's about making them happen. From big wins.
In primary school, when we would be asked what people want to be, I was categorical that I want to be a nurse.
To hard lessons.
The consoles change, the gaming equipment keep changing.
We cover it all. Tune in.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. Kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu kwamba wasichana si wa kusoma, ni wa kuolewa, ng'ombe ipatikane,
wazazi wakuwe watajiri.
Tunashughulikia yote.
I wish I were a better investor.
My parents taught me how to look for things for myself.
Tazama Mfahamu Kiongozi, ambapo kila kipindi kimejaa maarifa, mikakati na hadithi za kukuza azma yako.
For me to succeed, I have to fight.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism, how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m. The Grind, where business meets brilliance. It's not just about the ideas.
I was working as a shampoo boy. I used to wash clients' hair on the sink.
It's about making them happen. From big wins.
In primary school, when we would be asked what people want to be, I was categorical that I want to be a nurse.
To hard lessons.
The consoles change, the gaming equipment keep changing.
We cover it all. Tune in to The Grind, where every episode is packed with insights.
The person who is serving customers, always be a customer-centric.
Strategies.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
And stories to fuel your ambition. Don't just dream it, grind it. Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. Kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu kwamba wasichana si wa kusoma, ni wa kuolewa, ng'ombe ipatikane, wazazi wakuwe watajiri.
Tunashughulikia yote.
I wish I were a better investor.
My parents taught me how to look for things for myself.
Tazama Mfahamu Kiongozi, ambapo kila kipindi kimejaa maarifa, mikakati na hadithi za kukuza azma yako.
For me to succeed, I have to fight.
kila Alhamisi saa 1:30.
All right, welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV 47. Time for State of the Nation. Of course, a big discussion still about the Deputy President's impeachment that happened before the National Assembly. The matter is now before the Senate, and the Senate will deliberate on it next week. But before that, a lot of discussions, including what is and had happened behind the scenes leading to that impeachment. For this conversation this morning, we're privileged to have Daniel Manduku, MP Nyaribari Masaba. Bwana Manduku is also one of those MPs who voted yes for this impeachment. Karibu sana, Bwana Manduku.
Thank you very much, Fred.
Also joining us for this conversation is Josephat Kamanya, political analyst. Karibu sana.
Sana.
The Standard today talks about the DP's fight back inside Karen Nav Center. And they say after shock impeachment, I don't know if it was really shocking. It looks like it was expected by MPs and an impending Senate trial. Rigathi Gachagua has hunkered down in his current residence with the best political, legal and communication minds to fine-tune his arsenal that involves an aggressive defense and offensive in parliament, courts and political arena. The Star talks about Mount Kenya MPs ditching Gachagua at key hour. And the Daily Nation talks about Ruto's call and failed attempts to save Gachagua. So apparently, church leaders were at State House on Sunday, a few days before the impeachment, and they failed to convince the president. But most interesting is the fact that this paper says on Monday, this was a day before the impeachment for the National Assembly, the deputy president received an important call from his boss, President William Ruto. It took less than a minute for the president to pass his message, and at the end of the call, it was clear that the DP was on his own. So many people are wondering, what message probably did the president, or could have the president passed on to his deputy? When the deputy president addressed the nation that evening, he talked about a push for him to resign. And let's consider that for a moment. The fact that up till now he's yet to resign, and yet we know that impeachment has its own repercussions, has its own implications as well. Bwana Manduku, do you think that the deputy president is gambling with his political future?
Fred, first of all, let me start by standing with the girl child. Today is the International Day for the Girl Child. And being a father of daughters, let me say that we've seen tremendous improvements over the years in as far as girl child welfare, education, and even stereotypes are concerned. Now, coming back to your question, and I said it here last week, that the impeachment of the deputy president is a political process. Mm-hmm. I know that he has got a recourse, either in Senate or even the courts of law. But I think, as it were, and let me say it here without an iota of any doubt, his die was cast. Going by the numbers in the National Assembly that voted in favor of the motion, you don't need to be a brain surgeon to see that the political climate and the political temperatures around it are already decided. I don't know what discussion he may have had with his boss, but clearly if your boss doesn't want you to work with him, the honorable thing to do is to resign and fight another day. Mm-hmm. The good thing about this process is that it's open, and that it may even help us get a new era of jurisprudence, because some of these things are fast. Mm-hmm. And so, in as much as he wants to go to the Supreme Court, all the way to court and the Supreme Court eventually, it will help us clean up our legal process. But then, he crossed the Rubicon a long time ago.
Yes.
Instead of wasting a lot of time, having a lot of temperatures in the mountain, I think the honorable thing to do is for him to call it quits. Mm-hmm. and live to fight another day. This is my honest opinion.
Yes.
Thank you.
The question is, what is he fighting for right now? The conversation appears to have moved on. In fact, people are talking about his replacement, of which we'll come to, and the fact that it would appear, if at all we saw the numbers go that way in the National Assembly, the Senate more or less will go the same way.
Yeah, good morning, Fred, and to our viewers. Allow me to attach myself to the sentiments of the day and wish a happy Girls' Day to our daughters, my daughters, sisters, mothers, and grandmothers as well. And on to the matter, I think the issue of the Deputy President, his die is cast. And clearly, this is not a question on whether he should resign or not. We were able to identify long before that there was an imminent fallout between him and the president. And it came out clearly that, leading to the Gen Z revolution, that they had fallen off. It was only a matter of time. And then the beginning of the Gen Z revolution did not make things any better for him. You could remember us calling for them to show a united front when the country was seemingly falling apart. But now, here we are. A lot has transpired. The grounds that the members of parliament found impeachable are not necessarily what is fueling the impeachment or removal from office of the current deputy president. This is a political fallout, and there is no turning back. Because one, the president is decided that he does not want to work with him anymore. The deputy president seems very determined that he does not want to go home alone. He has alluded that anything I've done wrong, I've been taught. That's a call for impeachment on the president. It may also be wise to note that the president also stands impeached by the Kenyans as of June of this year. So we are in a political disarray. And what happens now, this is a moment of trying to salvage oneself. And one thing the president has had to do is to let go of the deputy. Because remember, there has been an entry of the opposition, and they have to create space, political space.
The issue is, one would imagine that right now the priority would be for the deputy president to save his political future. But the route he's taking, it would appear he's given up on that, so that he's pursuing something different.
That would be a line of thinking. However, what political future are we talking about? If we were to be pragmatic, the deputy president failed successfully to create a political background from the mountain. And a conversation has been looming about that he has not managed to consolidate any following from the mountain, which is the area of origin, politically speaking. And that's why he has not been even able to marshal the numbers in parliament. Most of the members who voted against him are from his backyard. So his political future ends here. The hope was he would be a one-term deputy president, but evidently he's going to be a half-term deputy president. So the future is bleak for him.
Is it even half? Because
40%.
40%. And there are implications. Yeah.
The president is clear. If I let you be, what message am I sending?
Wow.
There is a saying in times of from the times of the kingdoms that if you aim at the king, make sure you don't miss. Because if you do, that's the end of you. Here we are.
The Star talks about Mount Kenya MPs ditching Gachagua at the key hour. 40 lawmakers voted for his impeachment from that region. Only 19 voted against the motion. So definitely the deputy president appears more and more a lone ranger. And there's a story filed by our reporters here at TV47 on the same. Let's watch it.
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua's return to the National Assembly this week was perhaps his lowest moment in his 2-year stint as Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
After his 2-hour defense before the MPs, his defense fell on deaf ears after 281 MPs impeached him, leaving him a lone ranger, unwanted and isolated as President William Ruto and opposition leader Raila Odinga allies joined forces to impeach him.
Rigathi Gachagua has learned his job from his boss, that public officers must be called to order when they fell short of expectation. And I never saw anybody bring William Ruto here for impeachment for criticizing the IG or the DCI. This is a very unfair allegation.
On a week, President Ruto has maintained a studious silence on a man he once referred to as a brother in 2021 during their tribulations under former President Uhuru Kenyatta. In a tweet making rounds on social media, President Ruto Cabinet Secretaries Hassan Joho, Aden Duale and Dr. Alfred Mutua have celebrated Gachagua's downfall, signaling Gachagua's fallout with his boss is no longer a secret.
Asante for the unity, asante for standing together. Whatever it is, ule uamuzi mulifanya, sisi tuko nyuma yenu. Na lakini muliufanya kwa asili 100%.
Na kiongozi anayeongea mambo ya shareholding na kugawanya Kenya, huyo ni mtu wa fikira za 1960s, 1950s.
CS Aden Duale in a post on X on October 7, after Gachagua claimed he helped President Ruto secure 7.2 million votes in their 2022 election victory, attacked Gachagua for lacking respect to the nominating authority, telling him the die is cast.
Nyidire muge muno no dire kirimu. Kuri okaudu joy. Na darora garora gukira tene garora. Gona gatuma. Aciari ciana ici nicito muciaririe. Muciere ciemenyerere. Tondu ya mugikuyu tumenyerere twendane ndukanoe kahiu ugatheca murwanyu kwa mugongo arorete mbere.
With the second phase of the impeachment before the Senate, Secretary to the Cabinet Mercy Wanjau will be testifying against Gachagua for opposing cabinet decisions. Wanjau will be appearing as a custodian of cabinet documents. KEMSA acting CEO Andrew Mulwa will be testifying on the 3.7 billion shillings tender against Gachagua and his son. Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja will testify on the Wakulima Market Traders relocation wars with the DP of the three public officials on President Ruto's speed dial. Gachagua, who premises his political capital in the Mount Kenya region, popularly known as Kusikiliza Ground, is not alone, as close to 20 MPs in the National Assembly from the Mount Kenya region continue to stand with Gachagua, with the latest being John Kagushia of Mukurweini, Nyeri County MP Rahab Mukami, Kieni MP Njoroge Wainaina, and Embu County MP Pamela Njoki. In the Senate, the Deputy President is not a lone ranger, after he hosted 11 senators in August this year from the Mount Kenya region. 8 of the senators have declared their support for the DP publicly, apart from Nyeri Senator Home Wamatinga, who continues to blow hot and cold, and his Laikipia counterpart John Kenyua. Apul Kamau, TV47.
Wilson Sossion, former MP and also a former Secretary General of the National Union of Teachers, KNUT, joins the panel. Karibu sana, Bwana Sossion.
Yeah, asante sana. Good morning.
Good morning. Also joining us is Titus Lote, MP Kacheliba constituency. It's good to have you in studio.
Thank you. Good morning.
Today we're focusing on the Deputy President going forward after his impeachment in the National Assembly. Bwana Lote is also among those who voted in support of the motion to impeach the Deputy President. The matter is now before the Senate, but according to the dailies, the Deputy President is still working very hard to fight back against this. DPs fight back inside Karen Naf Center. They say he is working on his defense and offensive in Parliament, courts, and the political arena. But the question is this morning, what is he looking to salvage? With the impeachment and what we expect will happen the same way in the Senate, he will more likely stand impeached by the end of next week. That would have serious implications for his political future. Why would he still be fighting at this point? There are enough calls for him to resign, and that would offer him probably some relief in as far as salvaging his politics going forward. Bwana Lote, do you understand the Deputy President's actions?
Well, thank you and good morning. One, I would actually say it will be an exercise in futility for the Deputy President to continue fighting even after the National Assembly resoundingly voted for his impeachment. You know, the National Assembly only required 133 members, that is 2/3, to be able to allow the proceedings to go on to the Senate. But we had 282 members of the National Assembly who actually impeached him. And so for that, the Deputy President needed to have read the signs of times, because the same thing will happen to the Senate. I actually listened to the beginning proceedings of the Senate, and you will actually see that the senators are also held bound to ensure that the Deputy President is out. So for me, it will have been very good if those that are advising the Deputy President, it would be very good to salvage his political career by allowing him to, and even advising him to resign. Because if he doesn't resign, he's going to be impeached. You can actually read the moods of the leaders in this country. Apart from the very few individuals within that are politically tribalized to believe that they are being persecuted, I will say the Deputy President is not being persecuted. The community is not persecuted. It's the Deputy President action that has called for this. Because what was expected on Tuesday when the discussion was taking place at the National Assembly was that there are going to be a lot of street protests. A lot of people are coming to the streets to protest because something that was not fair was being done to the Deputy President. But unfortunately, or fortunately, Kenyans went on with their business. It basically means that there was a national approval of members of the public, that can continue like that. Unlike the finance bill, where we saw a lot of people pouring in the streets in resentment against the finance bill. This was completely clear. So for me, I think the Deputy President needs to be very clear to himself that the mood of the nation, the mood of the leaders in this country, the mood of the houses, both houses, is that he should stand impeached.
Okay, but
he should not be fighting.
There is something to be gained from this process. It is the very first time we're testing our constitution to this extent, impeachment of the Deputy President or even the President. So allowing this process to go to its logical conclusion would offer the country at least some insight into how the process should proceed. Isn't that something positive also?
It's extremely positive, and it is more of constitutional process than political. And that's what many people don't understand, because it's a departure from the previous arrangement where the president would fire a deputy president. But this one is different. The deputy president can only be removed from office via an impeachment. An impeachment is a process, and the process is seized with the institution of parliament, with the National Assembly initiating the process and the Senate finally prosecuting the matter and taking the final vote. And once the Senate takes the final vote, that actually ultimately would be the end of the impeachment. The Constitution does not envisage even judicial interference, according to many lawyers who are arguing about it. That then, once the Senate takes its vote next week, it will be the end of it. And sacredly, it will be the Constitution itself rolling the process. And therefore, being the Constitution rolling the process, everyone else is excluded from the process. And therefore, we cannot argue politically. And the only thing that can happen is that the Deputy President can try to discharge himself using facts of law and facts of the Constitution. And that's the process. Parliamentarians did their bit, and they voted unanimously at 281, above the threshold of 233. That is near unanimous. And I think this is a new era that we are allowing our Constitution to work. And I said, the chicks have come home to roost. We got the Constitution in 2010, that is 14 years ago. But a lot of it has not matured to operate. And that then, for example, I was talking last time here about the finance bill. The level of public participation, the enthusiasm in 2023 and 2024 has been very high. And that's a good thing. It's a good thing that the public can participate, as was envisaged under Article 10 of the Constitution. And that then in 2024, a deputy president can also be removed from office via impeachment, which the Constitution allows. And therefore, I would say this is an opportunity for Kenya to improve governance and for the people to exercise their sovereign power by removing rogue officers and remove impunity in the governance of this country. The impeachment is not only applicable to the deputy president, it is applicable to cabinet secretaries and other state officers.
Even the president.
It is applicable to the president, and even members of parliament can also be recalled. There is a recall clause. Kenyans can wake up. If there are members of parliament who are sleeping, you recall them. If there are governors who are rocks, and the audit report of 2022 of 10 years of devolution revealed that a lot is happening with devolution. We are not getting it right. And the only way to correct it is impeachment. Impeach these governors. Impeach the cabinet secretaries who are not working. And impeach any state officer. And we move on. We don't need to allow individuals to occupy.
Manduku, do you see this opportunity that it's time for us to test the limits of this constitution and go to the logical conclusion that, yes, as he rightly put it, once the Senate sits and votes on this matter, the deputy president will still cease to be deputy president immediately after that because he'll have successfully been impeached. But where does a court come in? How does the judiciary get involved in this matter? Even on the matter of recalling members of parliament, it is high time, don't you think, that Kenyans really test the tenacity of this constitution?
Fred, I want to agree with my colleagues, Honorable Ote and Honorable Sosion, that in as far as testing our constitutional foundation, this process may help us in improving in the area of jurisprudence because there's no precedent per se. And so even as the Deputy President plans to go to court, it's a welcome move. But then we must divorce the fact that this is a political process. But I also ask myself, if I was Deputy President and I only got 44 members of parliament to support me, am I really a Deputy President? I'm thinking aloud because I looked at His Excellency William Ruto when he was Deputy President. If such a motion had come to Parliament, it would never pass because Honorable William Ruto had the members of Parliament on his side. How can it be that you've been Deputy President for 2 years and no member of Parliament truly or openly wants to associate with you except the 44 out of 349? That in itself is a litmus test that even as you want to hold on or to clutch to a straw, you really don't have the numbers where they matter. And even if he was to come back, or even if he was to be saved, then the president must decide now whether he will side with the 282 members or to one man. So yeah, it's a very difficult political decision that he has to make. And for any reasonable man, the president will obviously side with the members of parliament because then we represent millions of people or millions of voters, as it were. Basically, looking at the numbers, 80% are for the impeachment and 20% are for the deputy presidents. Why hold on to something that you don't have?
Mm-hmm. Talking about numbers, Bwana Kamanya, there are concerns that the way numbers are being used in the National Assembly could mean a lot of other things. After this impeachment, this will pass. There are other issues before the National Assembly, including possible amendment to the Constitution. The way we've seen numbers being whipped for this impeachment, does it worry you that the same way, the same numbers can be used for something else, even probably a bit sinister?
Well, indeed, Fred, I do stand concerned by the oscillation of numbers in Parliament. And we know this has come as a result of the dalliance between the political parties, opposition and government. And of major concern is that somehow, as a confession from the members of Parliament, they are whipped to a certain direction. And this time around is the impeachment. This will come and go, that is true. But what happens to them trying to sneak back the finance bill in bits, What happens to them trying to pass motions and acts that are going to affect the general population in a manner that...
Including extending term limits.
Term limit, that's a question. But of course, I hope they are wise enough now to listen to the ground and what the people are saying. because much as they are elected and the representatives of the people of Kenya, constitutionally so, power still belongs to the people. And that's why you saw the call for meaningful public participation. Whether it was well substantiated during this impeachment, that's a whole different case. But still, it is upon them as the members of parliament to realize that the delegated authority that they behold must not stand to compromise the current interest of the people. Just because they're in parliament, courtesy of us, the civilians, it does not give them or hold them away from the responsibility of still consulting through the public participation, because any motion, any act, any law, any legislation must be to the interest of the public policy. Again, they must remember that their only role is legislation, oversight, and supervision. If they're not able to execute this in a manner that brings this country to move in a positive trajectory, they are putting us in a disarray once again, because soon enough we're going to have another finance bill. You know, the making of it is in motion. What will they say when the president, or even like today, should the president decide to mend fences with a deputy, and then the motion doesn't go through the Senate? You know, the deputy will not stand impeached. What will the members of parliament say, having almost unanimously voted that he has been found impeachable? So what I'm alluding to is that we need autonomy of the National Assembly. Because remember, it is another institution and an arm of government that, again, just like the president, has been found illegitimate by Kenyans. When it was stormed during the Gen Z revolution, that I hope was a clear message to the to the legislatures, that we are watching, and when you do not comply to the wishes of the people, there is an alternative route. We don't want this country to go that direction. We would want a point whereby legislation happens to the interest of the public policy. So having the numbers in parliament makes it easy for the government, you know, to run the government business. But what government business is being moved? Is it for the people, or is it merely for the political class?
Okay. And Bonalote, in connection to that, there's the issue of public participation. The way numbers are being whipped in parliament, the executive way. There's public participation on the other hand. What are the people saying? We saw what happened when the National Assembly went out to collect public views regarding the impeachment of the deputy president. And the concern is, many people out there felt like it was some sort of referendum. In fact, they were talking about counting the forms that they filled. That's the understanding out there, that if I'm told I'm giving my views, it should count. Yet there's a gap there. There's no proper way of calibrating or weighting the results of this public participation. It is the same problem that the National Assembly has been facing. Most of the pieces of legislation that have encountered hurdles in the courts of justice have been mainly because of lack of public participation. How do you navigate that going forward, given what we have seen? And probably this is one of the things that the Deputy President might be seeking to raise in the courts of law.
Well, I think in one of the media interviews, I actually said it very clearly. Our article, I think Article 118 of the Constitution talks about public participation, and it is just about it being sufficient and conclusive. It doesn't give parameters in terms of what needs to be done. And I think the courts have actually been doing injustice to this country, because they have never specified what constitutes a public participation. They have never said you need to talk to 20 women or you need to talk to 100 men for it to be called a public participation. It does not specify whether it should be done at the ward level or the constitutional level. It should just be sufficient and conclusive. So for me, I think the courts needs to be very clear in terms of this. We need to have the parameters so that we do not just throw everything out on basis of public participation. And that is the fear that the members of parliament had, even when this thing came for the impeachment of the deputy president. We actually wanted to demonstrate to the courts, because that was the thing that we expected from the word go, that the courts were going to throw it out based on public participation that does not have a parameter. I'll challenge you today, Fred, to give me any law that talks about the parameters of what public participation constitutes.
Is that the work of the National Assembly to legislate?
Okay, it is the work of the National Assembly. And so what the courts needed to have done is not to throw anything out. It's just to say, create parameters. Because today, a judge says public participation was not met another judge says public participation was met. So it's like it is something that is open for anybody to interpret the way they want. So that is the first thing. And so for this one, and I want to say, the members of public wanted to say, it is only on this one for the deputy president that the public participation took place. I'll tell you, public participation has been taking place in most, actually all of the bills that have gone through Parliament. But for this one, we actually knew of the fear that the courts were waiting to just say public participation never took place. And they have never specified what this public participation is. Now, we went out, and there were 3 questions that the public were given. The first one is, do you support the impeachment of the deputy president? The second one is, so the public will be saying, I support. The second response will be, I do not support. And the third response, public were given opportunities to give another opinion. Others will say reconcile. Others will say, let's give it time. All those were collected.
Others would say Kufa Makanga, Kufa Dereva.
Kufa Makanga, all those were given. That is why basically mean everybody was given a chance to say what they wanted. And they were given.
It is
and
a question
so when
that
was collected,
yes.
When that was collected, the opinion was out, just like it is in Parliament. Very few people supported that the deputy president continue to stay. People say, okay, well, let the deputy president go.
Right now, it's unanimous before the National Assembly that, yes, they wanted the deputy president impeached. So even public participation, whichever way it went, the members of parliament were on one side. But they could also disagree on this public participation as well.
Well, how do you disagree? Unless then you just want to become antagonistic. Because everybody that wanted to participate was participating. There are people that were supposed to give in their feedback through email. Okay. There are those that were giving their impact. Anyway, all channels were open for members of the public to give their opinion. And the opinion is out. Okay. Just like it's in the members of parliament. The other thing that I'll say about what my colleague has said here is that what about if the president now decides that there is no impeachment? I'll say this is not about the president. It is about us exercising our constitution. The president does not have anything to do with it. We have done it as members of parliament. We will continue pushing for it, and we will ask the president in the finance bill. We were able to vote for the finance bill, but he threw us under the bus. I do not think the president is blind to again.
There was also public participation there, and the president listened to the public participation. Yes. But Asuncion, on the issue of public participation, do you see a gap that probably the National Assembly is using this kind of confusion to suit its own needs, but this will come to bite them later?
I think what the National Assembly did was to comply with the ruling of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court guided public participation, that it's not just mere public participation. It must be qualitative and quantitative, and it must be public participation. So the pronouncement of the Supreme Court becomes a guiding law for now, in the absence of an act that guides public participation. But I recommend very strongly that we need to have a strong public participation law so that it guides. It's not just mere forums sitting in hotels and you call it public participation, or calling a few people for a committee meeting and you call it public participation. I think there are questions about what public participation is, but has been cured by the ruling of the Supreme Court. And even referendum. Referendum is provided in the Constitution, but we don't have a referendum act so that it guides on. And we can do very many referendums easily in a cost-effective way, things to do with like our education system. But I think I allowed National Assembly for trying as much as possible to implement the ruling of the Supreme Court. Initially, the forums were at 47 counties on Friday, which was announced in the media.
Yeah.
And those forums went on, we saw, both qualitative and quantitative. Quantitative in the sense that you could count those who are for and against. Qualitative in the sense that you could...
Question as you continue, because
yes.
You say they were qualitative and quantitative. There are concerns like in vast counties like Marsabit, where one side is about 400 kilometers from the other end, and the public views are collected at the central, probably where the governor's office is. How qualitative is that?
And the ruling that came from Kirinyaga on the same Friday, asking for extension, the National Assembly responded and added another day to be done at the constituency level. And I think the constituency level and offices of the women representatives are the true units, because that is where every member of parliament hails from. And I think that is the best that parliament could do. And I can see here in the nation that the National Assembly is mulling, consulting the public in constituencies in enactment of various laws in future, that then the units be constituencies like Kachelipa. All bills in parliament must be conducted the public participation at the constituency where the member of parliament is present and can listen to the people and the feelings of the people, so that then we drop the forums that are being conducted in hotels. So for me, I think the National Assembly did a wonderful thing, and we saw a new thing. It almost, like you are saying, it was like a referendum. People came out to express themselves differently, although there was the question of rule of relevance, like Kufa Derefa Kufa Makanga. The impeachment was on the Makanga. So you see, you stick to impeaching the Makanga.
We saw a report being presented on the public participation.
It was a big stride in terms of public participation, but let's have a look.
They talked about 65% and approving the motion. But many Kenyans are wondering, where did they get that figure? What were you counting? There are no parameters. There's no way of calibrating this public views. So how did they get to that 65%?
I want to agree with Honorable Sosion that insofar as the quantitative aspect was concerned, every constituency received a number of tabulated forms. So the calculation was based on the return. For example, in my constituency, there were 608 respondents. And so it was very simple to calculate out of the 608, how many were for and how many were against. And that was tallied across. But having said that, let me say this.
The forms are not serialized. How can you even count photocopies?
Let me say this. There's a lack of a Public Participation Act. But also, I think the lawyers for the Deputy President went too soon to court. Because I see a gap. Had they gone now, after the impeachment at the National Assembly, then the court would have ruled that public participation at the county level was insufficient. But having gone to court when the process of public participation was ongoing, the court cured that and gave a solution that now you must devolve this public participation at the constituency level. But in the absence of a substantive act on public participation, then the courts must guide further going forward. And in my view, whatever decision they make going forward, it will be more of advisory. Because then we can argue until tomorrow that what is real public participation. And to me, really, for the first time, we had a lot of respondents, more than 200,000, in fact, close to 300,000. We have never had such a figure in anything before, even in our own acts that we implement in Parliament, we legislate in Parliament. But then, having tallied this, you can argue there was bias or there was no bias. How do you select the respondents? It is scientific. Those of us who've done research at PhD level know that when you go to the field, there are always margins of error. Maybe going forward, and with a substantive act in Parliament, that can be cured on how, when, and where to do the public participation.
Do you think members of the National Assembly would be interested in such an act? They seem to have found a comfortable space in the fact that there's a lot of fog and confusion around public participation to suit their needs, your needs.
Everything is progressive. And I think so far we've come a long way. And I think we're on the right trajectory. Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right. Still staying on this conversation, the matter now moves to another discussion. I'm looking at the Siasa copy here of the Star, the pullout, and they're talking about, will the next Mount Kenya leader stand up? Because they're talking about the replacement of the Deputy President. So we also have a story filed by one of our reporters here at TV47 on lobbying for Gachagua's replacement. Let's watch that story. All right, we'll be getting that story soon. But as things stand, by Mashujaa Day, we will not be having a Deputy President. Now, okay, we do have the story. Okay, let's watch it first.
In under 2 short weeks, the ouster bid against Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has gained momentum and is now in the home stretch, the Senate. But even as President William Ruto's lieutenants remain vocal on social media and on the floor of the House, the president has remained silent, only updating his official activities via social media. Sources indicate that there is already talk of Gachagua's replacement, which could happen soon. Among the names flaunted is that of Interior CS Professor Kithure Kindiki. The professor of law was endorsed by more than 48 members of parliament in what was termed as Nyahururu Declaration. However, sources indicate that Kindiki might face a hurdle in proving to be a force on the William Ruto re-election in 2027. The former Tharaka Nithi senator is from the Mount Kenya East region of Tharaka Nithi, Meru and Embu counties.
He's one of the people who have been performing very well. And given that, I don't know whether he's going to be appointed, although we are more certain that we know who is going to be given, but we don't want to pronounce that.
Women leaders from the Mount Kenya region have also made it to the shortlist. They include Lands Cabinet Secretary Alice Wahome and immediate former chairperson of the Council of Governors, Anne Waiguru. Another notable figure from the mountain is Kiharu MP Ndindi Nyoro. Ndindi has, however, reportedly rejected the offer, citing his young age. Nyoro is also said to be out of the equation over his silence on the Gachagua ouster. Gachagua, in a recent interview, termed Nyoro as his close friend, who even offered him shelter when he was facing it rough during the Uhuru Kenyatta regime.
Ndindi Nyoro is my very great friend and is one of our young leaders ambaye nimementa and I continue to mentor. He's a very bright young man. Na ndio hujaona yeye akiongea hii maneno ya kutukanana. Umesikia Ndindi Nyoro akitukana mtu. He's been very respectful na amejibeba kama kiongozi and he has a future because yeye ni kijana ambaye anajua nini anafanya na ni rafiki yangu sana. Hata siku tulikuwa na shida katika serikali iliyopita, siku nilikuwa nashikwa kila Friday, nilikuwa naenda kujificha kwake na kaa weekend na bibi yake Sofia ananipikia chakula.
National Assembly Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah has also been mentioned as among the possible replacements of a man he described as having a dark heart. Prime CS Musalia Mudavadi's name has been mentioned in the matrix, whereas from the northeastern region, Environment CS Aden Duale's name has also featured. Duale is among the cabinet secretaries who have been vocal on the impeachment of his boss, Gachagua.
Mr. Speaker, he did not even step in Wajir and Mandera. This is a deputy president of the whole country. I support the impeachment. He must go home and create a room for other people to get that position. Maybe it's time for other regions to be deputies so that we can get the same benefits. Mr. Speaker, I can even do a good job myself.
If you read the Constitution, you'll know that you don't qualify to be a deputy president at your age.
As cracks persist between President Ruto and his deputy, equally persistent is the loud silence from the president, who is also UDA party leader. A recent research findings by Tifa Research Company favored Professor Kithure Kindiki at 37% as the most preferred replacement of Gachagua, followed by Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi by 5%, Kiharu Member of Parliament Ndindi Nyoro by 5%, Kirinyaga Governor Anne Waiguru by 3%, and Homa Bay Governor Gladys Wanga by 2%.
281.
With the impeachment motion set to be discussed in the Senate on Wednesday and Thursday next week, sources privy to Gachagua's succession have alluded to a surprise move by the president, who could source a principal assistant from the opposition, Azimio, in the spirit of the broad-based government, with the aim of changing the whole structure of government. Notably silent as the impeachment continues has been AUC chair candidate Raila Odinga. Whereas the head of state hasn't made a public political statement, the clock is ticking to the Mashujaa Day celebrations set to be held in Kwale County, an event which pundits await to see how things play out and which will be 2 days after the Senate makes its decision on the impeachment. George Maringa, TV47, Nairobi.
All right, so next Thursday will be the 17th of October. It will be 3 days before Mashujaa Day, a big celebration in Kwale. By then, if the Senate takes a vote on Thursday by midnight that day, we will not have a deputy president. So the next step would be for the president to nominate a deputy president. This is also unprecedented, and it's causing quite some excitement from across the country. Yet there are those who insist that the president still has to give this seat back to Mount Kenya. Do you think it is even logical that the president may do that at this time when public sentiment is he is losing support in that region?
Well, first, let me say, Fred, it must be very painful to be a member of parliament in this administration, because at the end of the day, it is the will of the party leaders that prevails. The anonymity of our honorable legislatures has been, overshadowed by that. And that's why you see we have a lot of political back and forth, but even for them as members of parliament, decisions that they could question, they don't have the power to. An example would be in a sub-county or a constituency where you have over 20,000 registered members, but the public participation, only about 700 people showed up, and that is termed to be qualitative and quantitative. It raises a lot of questions. So when I say that, I mean we need to broaden the spectrum of the parameters of our constitution. And such processes that we are experiencing now, they're challenging how live our constitution is and what we need to amend moving forward. But it is a step in the right direction. This should be the best news for the country because it is unprecedented that a change of administration, a change in the presidency is happening, like I said before, peacefully but chaotic. And here we are. Now, when it comes to replacement of the deputy president, because as a nation, we must have a deputy president. That is a constitutional right for us all Kenyans across the political divide. Is it wise for the president to now nominate somebody from the mountain? From what I've heard, the people from the mountain don't care. They don't want it. They want the position going to another region. Because one, it has reaped no benefit in the last over 2 years that we have had a deputy president from the mountain. And secondly, we must remember, however blind some people may ought to be, that the president and the deputy president, they stand impeached by the public as of June this year. That's why people are saying, we are not against the impeachment of the deputy president. We are for the impeachment of the deputy president and the president. Had there been such a clause in this document that was circulating, then the overwhelming support would have been for impeachment of both. Whether it is constitutionally applicable or practical as of now, that's another question. But I think it is in the wisdom of the president to try and find a representative or rather a replacement of the deputy president from not the listed persons. This is the time we are going to see, as Ahmed Nasir said, the senior counsel, that we are about to realize whether the problem is the president himself as an individual or it is the people surrounding him. Because none of the proposed persons, especially from the mountain region, has the political muscle that would help the re-election of the current president in 2027. None of them, not Kindiki, none of them, not Ali Swahome, not Dindinyoro, none of them. So perhaps it is about time he tries to see whether the broad-based government, just like he imported a few professional CSs, the most qualified from the opposition, perhaps he should get a replacement from that side. Because even the sitting members of parliament today, they do know that the political discourse that is happening has put, and you see we have very young legislators with us here today, but their political process, their political future, their political career has been put at loggerheads as of now because they have been forced to fight battles that they are not within their scope. But they must because of the party allegiance and what the boss says. So there is a lot of rift, and I would wish that right now the president finds it in his wisdom to source for somebody else from the opposition. And we see whether that can salvage him politically, which again would be an exercise in futility.
Would it also be wise for the president to pick someone politically powerful for deputy president? We'll continue this discussion after the break. You're watching Morning Cafe.
Download the Base app or dial *218 *88#.
Hey there friends, welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in? I was number 2. What position were you? Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe. My name is Freddie Demuli. We're still continuing with this conversation that has now moved to the replacement of the Deputy President. It appears it is a done deal as far as Parliament is concerned. So yes, let's talk about what happens after Thursday next week when, as we expect, as things are going, Senate will pronounce itself on the matter, and 80% would appear that we won't have a Deputy President by Friday morning next week. Then what happens next? Yes, there's consideration for the mountain and the kind of support that comes from there. There's also consideration, as Bwana Kamanya says, probably from the opposition that is now in the broad-based government. But we've seen how the selection of deputy governors has been. And Bwana Lote, you would know more about this, that many, even governors, would opt for a deputy who's not necessarily a very powerful deputy politically. Would it be wise for the president to go for someone who is politically powerful? Or are there ramifications of such a choice?
First of all, I need to say that before the elections of 2022, it was clear that the president, then the deputy president, was a figure to reckon in the politics of then, and that it didn't matter a lot who becomes the deputy. And the reason why there was a voting between who becomes the deputy, and there was a proposal for Kithure Kindiki, and there was a proposal for Gachagua. And a lot of members of parliament then voted for Kithure Kindiki, professor, but the president went in to pick Gachagua. It basically means that he had his own personal muscle at that time to become president, irrespective of who becomes the deputy. And I think that is the spirit that we will need to discuss when we are discussing about the next replacement of Gachagua. Because as to whether Gachagua is going to be replaced or not, I'll tell you the die is cast, is open, it is out there, and I think if I were Mr. Gachagua, the deputy president now, I will resign so that I can continue with my benefit thereafter. If he doesn't, this replacement is already done. And the reason why you find people already discussing about who is the possible replacement, because already people have seen through and they know that the end is near and that the deputy president is going to get out of the scene. One thing that Mr. Kamanya said about the possible replacement is that the Mount Kenya people are saying it can go to anybody else because they did not see the benefit. And I think it's important. That is a very critical point. They did not see the importance of Rigathi Gachagua as the deputy president for the last 2 years. That basically tells you of the kind of a person that we are impeaching. Probably it wasn't even beneficial to anybody. Probably it was only beneficial to himself. He will only say, Usiguze Murima, and yet when we look at the charges against him, it's like individual charges. It's not about the people of the mountain. If you look at the benefits, what he gets from government is about relatives, about himself, is about these connections. It's not about the people of Mlima. And I think what Mr. Kamanya said is very critical, that the people of Mlima have also realized that this was an individual position, it's not a community position. My advice will be to the people of Mlima is that even if Gachagua never helped them as the deputy president, they should not lose hope and say, let it go to somebody else. Let it actually come back to the mountain, because the mountain contributed to this government. I will not want to go to the aspect of shares, but they contributed to this government. And probably another person, another sane, meaningful person can be able to help the people of Mlima realize the dreams that they had when they electing this government. So for me, I will say, as much as we have formed the broad-based government, which is very good, and that we're going to have Kenya not looking at the tribal connections, it will be important that we get somebody from
should political muscle be a consideration?
Political muscle should not necessarily be a consideration. Because like I said, the president himself had the muscles to become president irrespective of who the deputy was. If you look at the counties where we've got a very strong deputy, they will always have feud between him and the governor, him or her or the governor, because they will want to consider themselves as co-governors. And that is actually the problem that bedeviled Gachagua and Ruto, because each of them was feeling that they are the people that needs to. When you are somebody's deputy, you actually needs to be a deputy, an assistant, not a competitor. So that if the president is making a press brief today, you come and make yours as well. If the president is giving direction, you give your direction. That is what bedevils Gachagua. And so the president need to look from the mountain, according to my view, but then get a technical person that will sit in the office and be able to advise. If you look at the governors, most of the governors are prominent. Their deputies, nobody will tell. If you ask me today who's the deputy governor for Nairobi, for example, I might not be able to tell you. And that is why Nairobi is quiet. But if you go to the counties where deputies seem to be raising their horns, those counties are always having problems. And so the deputy president that needs to come now should be a technical support person to the president, and not necessarily a political muscle for the president.
This individual, Bwana Sosion, is only a heartbeat away from the presidency itself. A lot of consideration has to be put towards selecting such an individual. Political muscle, we've seen what is done to the two deputy presidents we've had so far. William Ruto was had quite some political muscle, and we saw how that relationship went, as Bwana Lote says. And we've seen how Rigathi Gachagua has gone as well. There has to be a lot of consideration into the character of the individual who's going to occupy that space after Gachagua.
Yeah, of course. And when you look at the way the Constitution was framed, it is meant to sanitize our politics and leadership. The impeachment removes a person from office. And there is a provision to replace by appointing a name and forwarding to Parliament for voting within a period of 14 days and voting within 60 days. But that can be done within 24 hours, and you have a deputy president. Mm-hmm. And how to believe that if the impeachment will be successful next week, then there will be a new president. But then what is important in the process of sanitizing our politics is to promote merit. Merit is a key thing. And if you look at the joint ticket policy, the joint ticket policy envisages, in case of a president exiting office, resigning or vacating office for various reasons, the deputy president assumes the presidency and completes the term. The deputy governor assumes the office and completes the term. So that then the deputy president who is appointed must, by all standards, be a person who is able to execute the functions of the office of the president. So we cannot be myopic as a country, and we begin looking at appointing weaklings in the name of fearing political threat. That will not be, it is not what the Constitution envisages. We expect a strong president, a competent president, and a competent deputy president. We expect a competent governor and a competent deputy governor. So that right now, looking at successful post-impeachment, that responsibility of appointing a deputy president is only vested in one person. That's the president.
But there's a lot of lobbying from different sectors.
Lobbying is a normal thing. Our constitution allows lobbying, and people can talk. It's our democracy. But ultimately, it is one person who will do it, and they will consider quite a number of things in narrowing down to a specific to a specific person. And for me, this is not, it's my own estimations and judgment as Wilson Social. The next deputy president, I believe very strong, will still come from Mount Kenya.
Yes.
Why? You cannot disenfranchise a region and people who played a key role in establishing the government. And therefore, I see that great possibility. But that decision lies with the president.
Okay.
He can decide to appoint somebody from Moyale, somebody from any part of Kenya. It means any Kenyan is eligible to be appointed as deputy president.
But the president definitely would consider.
Lobbying is not going to help. Let me tell you, lobbying is not going to help. But people are free to lobby. People are free to talk. But at the end of the day, that decision lies with the president.
The president himself has a lot of experience in that position as deputy, and he saw how it can feel to not work together or to be at loggerheads with your boss. He has seen now as president how it feels to be at loggerheads with your deputy. He would probably or more or less try to avoid this kind of situation going forward. He only has 3 years and he needs to focus on re-election 2027.
Why it's not for the provisions of the law, Constitution, I think, Article 149. William Ruto is a kind of president who can even work without a deputy. Why? He's very intelligent, very hardworking, always alert. He understands the workings of government. He understands the political landscape. In fact, he's one person who knows all the MPs by name and where they come from. And so, in a sense, he's in control. But then, having said that, it becomes very difficult to be the deputy. Why am I saying that? Because then you must be subservient constantly. And that is what DP Rigathi Gachagua did not do. Now, giving this to the mountain is the right thing to do. But then, DP Gachagua has sold a narrative that if you take this position, you are then a traitor. And so I fear for anyone taking that position, because that might also spell doom in as far as his political career is concerned. And so some of our friends and colleagues in parliament who are young and ambitious, if they take this position, it will be what they call a poisoned chalice. You'll only serve for 3 years. After that, the mountain will always view you as a traitor because you took a position that was taken from someone else or you disinherited somebody else. It's a very dicey position to be in. But then, as Honorable Susina said, what should matter is competence. And there are a lot of competent, hardworking people.
When you talk about competence, is it political competence? The current deputy president has been accused of not living up to the political stature of his position.
It is more of a working deputy president, work ethic more, not political. In fact, ideally, the character of a deputy president should be someone who has no political muscle more than your boss. We have good characters in the mountain, like the governor of Murang'a. You never hear of him, you never see, but he works. That's the kind of person who's fit to take this position. But then, I would fear that going forward, his political career may come to an end after 2027. Because even if he was to be a running mate, then it's not possible, or we are not guaranteed that the votes will be to William Ruto in 2027 from the mountain, because they'll have seen him as somebody, quote unquote, traitor. But I think he's the right fit for me if I was asked. Yeah.
All right. On the character of the next deputy president.
I think we are seeking a more...
If we are to forget the regions and just look at the character of the person.
I'll speak to the principles of governance, and altruism is something that comes to top of my head. A person who is willing to serve the country, a person who is competent enough to understand that the mandate they hold is to be responsible to millions of Kenyans, a person who is responsible enough to know that their utterances, their conduct, their character, their personal life even, could endanger or pacify the country. And that is what we are lacking. But that is what I hope we can find. I feel we don't have it even with the current president. As the honorable member says, the president is in control, but the question of competency comes into play. He may be in control of the politics. But remember, and we have to remember this as Kenyans, today, our main problem is not the political issue that we're dealing with. This will come and go. We're going to have a president and a deputy, and hopefully until 2027, people can decide. Our main issue remains the economic question that must be answered. And that's the answer we need to look for. We also must remember that as we get a replacement for the deputy president, this is sort of a president in waiting. Because, as Mr. Sosion says, should the president exit office for whatever reason, the deputy president assumes the presidential, becomes the president. So we must be pragmatic as Kenyans and remember that this is an era whereby we have to look for merit. Any Kenyan, when they get into office, they're responsible to serve all Kenyans. The issue of where you come from should be the least of importance. Because these members of parliament, when they get to the House, they do not serve the people who, their constituents. They're responsible for legislation over the country. The same goes to the deputy, the same goes to the president. Mm-hmm. So we have a very poor, in my opinion, pool of persons that can competently become a deputy president of the Republic of Kenya.
All right. And this is a debate that will continue. We only have about a week to consider this because as early as Friday next week, the issue of who becomes the next deputy president will be a real issue. But then let's wait until then. As we come to the close or to the end of our conversation, I want us to comment on the National Assembly's conduct in as far as discussing other issues of importance. As a lot of the public participation or public views collection process went on, many people complained that, and many people said that they would wish that other issues that affect Kenyans would be given the same kind of prominence and attention that the members of the National Assembly are giving this impeachment. We saw people who even have declared they do not attend parliamentary sessions were there on the front seat trying to ensure that they take part in this. Yet, if you look at the front pages today, on the Daily Nation, away from the impeachment, more than half of private hospitals yet to register for social health authority shift. On the Standard on the front page, schools financial crisis threatens national exams. These are issues that affect Kenyans directly, yet Parliament is not giving them as much attention. Do you agree that the conduct of the National Assembly especially has come into question? And as Bwana Kamanya said, that the legitimacy of Parliament is also in question.
Well, I do agree. They say the supremacy of this constitution supersedes everything else. And I think this country is for Kenyans, not for parliamentarians. So whatever Kenyans are saying, as members of Parliament, I cannot come and say automatically that Parliament is right. It's important to listen to the people. And the reason why the members of Parliament are there based on their representative role. They have actually been allowed to represent the people. And so the voice of the people supersedes the voice of the members of Parliament. That is one. Two, I will also...
Is that the reality or is that the ideal situation?
It is the ideal situation that I am sent by the people of Kacheliba to go and represent them in Parliament so that anything that concerns them, they will all not be able to speak on that matter. I will speak on behalf of them. And so if the people of Kacheliba, for example, are raising a concern or any matter like the way Kenyans are raising concerns about how members of Parliament are conducting themselves in terms of other important matters regarding this country, it is important for the members of Parliament to sit back and look. But one thing, Fred, I'll say is that not everything has the same weight in this country. Any political matter, and the reason why we can leave everything else during elections, every government even come to shut down. Because at that point, that becomes a very critical matter in terms of selecting who becomes the next in charge of this country. And so not every matter that comes to Parliament has the same weight. And so it would be unfair to say that the members of Parliament are supposed to give prominence to everything. They will give prominence in terms of what weight it carries to the direction of managing this country. But that being said, I'll also say there are matters that are critical. The reason why we are elected, the reason why the president is elected, the reason why governments are in place is for them to be able to offer services. And if services such as health, such as education is concerned, I think prominence is to come. And to be fair to the members of parliament, this thing also as attraction to the members of the public. If we raise a matter such as this for public participation, you go to a hall and you only get 7 people because it does not attract the kind of the momentum like the impeachment of the deputy president will. And so when we go out to impeach the deputy president for public participation, we find that everybody's on the hall because that is what attracts the public. When we go out for this social health or education, nobody comes. And so at the end of it all, they still want to verify the members of parliament for not having done public participation. Yet they went out there and there was nobody that came to the hall. And so sometimes we need to say it is not just about the members of parliament alone, it's also about the public, because the public do not participate in matters such as this. But if we put up issues to deal with the deputy president, they will all come.
Bwana Sossion, do you agree with that? That issues of education, for example, of which you're very passionate about, do not attract attention from members of the public, and that is a reflection in the National Assembly?
Education is a daily conversation because it affects all households, just like health. Those are 2 major social services in any jurisdiction anywhere in the world that are the most discussed. And it always has to be seized by members of parliament. One thing I want us to agree is how to progress our country forward. And while Kenyans are admitting that impeachment is now beginning to work and is practically removing people from office and governance is being escalated, and that then parliament, the National Assembly and Senate have come of age to do that, then the questions, the demands by Kenyans that then we should see the same gusto applied on other critical aspects of lives of Kenyans, like the operationalization of universal health coverage, UHC. It should be a business of everyone. And Parliament being an institution of both representation, oversight and legislation. So away from legislation, Parliament is being called upon to do more in representation, to do more in oversight. Because if, for example, the national exams are under crisis because of lack of funding of NEC or prompt release of money, I think Parliament is seized with that responsibility of questioning, investigating, and instituting their own investigation. They have a lot of sweeping powers. And so they're being called upon to really be more vigorous and vicious in oversight matters and in representation matters, away from the other business like impeachment. Impeachment is part of oversight, because when you impeach state officers, it is part of the duty of oversight. So Kenyans are genuine to tell members of parliament, hey, look here, can you broaden your operation and also you deliver in these other various aspects? I think it's something that parliamentarians should accept it in stride and keep biting. Don't sympathize with the executive when things go wrong. If things are not going right in education, investigate and assert your authority. If things are not going well in healthcare service, assert your authority But
do they have it in the DNA of this National Assembly that it can assert its authority on matters where the executive has already pronounced itself? It would appear, and this has been the accusation, that Parliament is simply a rubber stamp. Even on issues that are obviously not working, Parliament simply says yes.
I think, Fred, my position on that matter is well known. But then, let me defend my colleagues. If you go to the Hansard today and you look at the extracts, you realize that in matters health and education, Parliament always either summons the cabinet secretary is responsible. You also realize that Parliament has put in place the necessary legislation, which actually is the work of Parliament. In fact, to the best of my knowledge and recollection, the Committee on Health has had a lot of meetings to discuss the issue of the Social Health Authority and all the attendant matters to it. What is failing us is, again, issue of competence in those supposed to execute. One of the biggest challenges we've had with the social health insurance scheme is probably lack of dissemination of knowledge, timely dissemination of knowledge. Now, if hospitals have not registered for this new scheme, or in this new scheme, how does Parliament come in? Parliament has put in legislation. Parliament has made the necessary regulations. It is therefore incumbent upon the executive to execute. And I'll tell you that the biggest challenge the president still has, and I always say it, is that below him is a chain of incompetent individuals.
Some of them vetted by the same parliament?
And that is why these individuals are always summoned to come and explain. And I think even as he tries to clean up his administration, it is time the president relooked at his principal secretaries. The 50 of them, maybe only half are working. Why am I saying this? It is easier for members of parliament to get the president on phone. But you can't get some of these fellows on phone.
Gods.
And you wonder what they're doing, because we are there to represent people. And we don't ask for any individual interest.
Exactly.
And when you go to their offices, on the very simple matters of follow-up, you find that something has been lying on the tray for 3 months. I have a personal experience in that.
They don't care.
And they don't care. So we'll be telling the president kindly to look at his principal secretaries and get rid of at least half of them, and get other people who can work, who are interested in working.
When you say tell the president, is it because you're talking about calling him?
No, we'll do it through oversight, our oversight role. Just like we are doing with the deputy president. Now we are going down to the PSS.
Bwana Kamanya, the issue of this parliament, we've been here on this panel discussing the conduct of the National Assembly, especially. We've seen how powerful they are when it comes to impeaching the deputy president. How come they're not as powerful on these other issues? They appear wishy-washy, giving excuses on why this did not work. But when it came to the impeachment, they knew, and they were so sure it would work.
Incompetency is what underscores the character of the current National Assembly. And that is one. Two, they have lost their autonomy. The National Assembly has continuously refused to detach itself and act autonomously from the executive. You are hearing confessions of kakistocracy, whereby PSs and other civil servants are not able to collaborate, either through appearing at the National Assembly to answer questions, or they're unreachable. Such confessions are very worrying. And the buck stops with the president. This is one administration where Kenyans are going to continue suffering incompetency. I just urge my colleagues here that perhaps it's time they stop worrying about their political future and serve right in the time that they are being given the mandate to serve. Currently, we are not talking about the Adani deal. We've not had serious agitation from the members of parliament. Currently, and Mr. Sosion would agree with me, we are almost landing ourselves into a crisis because exams are coming. Issues of capitation and release of funds are looming. And remember, this destabilizes just not the exams, but also the transition to the subsequent phase of education will come early next year. These are things that the members of parliament, because currently they are our legislators, we have delegated. They need to go back and look at the core issues. When you talk of public participation, much as they did their bit on trying to formalize the transition from NHIF to this SHA, whatever it will come out to be, there should have been enough mitigative measures to make sure that Kenyans, the consumers of the health service, do not suffer. We've seen, patients crying out loud on matters dialysis, matters, treatment, various services that they're not able to procure with this new arrangement. Well, we must agree that at the end of the day, if you are an elected person, it is upon you to try and legislate, especially now to the MPs, in the interest of the Kenyans.
Okay.
We are not here to serve the masters or the political party leaders. Please do the right thing for Kenyans for once and let history judge you nicely.
They're here and they've heard Joshua Kamanya, political analyst, Asante Sana, Titus Lote, MP Kachaliba, Wilson Sosion, former MP and also former Secretary General of the Kenya National Union of Teachers, and Daniel Manduku, MP Nyaribari Masaba. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time here. Of course, it's a very interesting time for Kenyans. A lot of things that are unprecedented are happening. In the next 7 days, we may not be having a deputy president. What happens next Friday? We'll be here for that and a lot more. We also want to thank our viewers, both online and on TV, for keeping it TV47 and for watching Morning Cafe. My name is Fred Indemuli. Remember, it is a feel-good Friday, so a lot of music and more entertainment coming up after the break. To stand by for that. From me, it's good morning.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in? I was number 2. What position were you? Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism, how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m. The Grind, where business meets brilliance. It's not just about the ideas.
I was working as a shampoo boy. I used to wash clients' hair on the sink.
It's about making them happen. From big wins.
In primary school, when we would be asked what people want to be, I was categorical that I want to be a nurse.
To hard lessons.
The consoles change, the gaming equipment keep changing.
We cover it all. Tune in to The Grind, where every episode is packed with insights.
The person who is serving customers, always be a customer-centric.
Strategies.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
And stories to fuel your ambition. Don't just dream it, grind it. Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. Kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu kwamba wasichana si wa kusoma, ni wa kuolewa
ng'ombe ipatikane, wazazi wakuwe watajiri.
Tunashughulikia yote.
I wish I were a better investor.
My parents taught me how to look for things for myself.
Tazama Mfahamu Kiongozi, ambapo kila kipindi kimejaa maarifa, mikakati na hadithi za kukuza azma yako.
For me to succeed, I have to fight.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30.
Hey there friends, welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in? I was number 2. What position were you? Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m. The Grind, where business meets brilliance. It's not just about the ideas.
I was working as a shampoo boy. I used to wash clients' hair on the sink.
It's about making them happen. From big wins.
In primary school, when we would be asked what people want to be, I was categorical that I want to be a nurse.
To hard lessons.
The consoles change, the gaming equipment keep changing.
We cover it all. Tune in to The Grind, where every episode is packed with insights.
The person who is serving customers, always be a customer-centric.
Strategies.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
And stories to fuel your ambition. Don't just dream it, grind it. Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. Kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu kwamba wasichana si wa kusoma, ni wa kuolewa, ng'ombe ipatikane, wazazi wakuwe watajiri.
Tunashughulikia yote.
I wish I were a better investor.
My parents taught me how to look for things for myself.
Tazama Mfahamu Kiongozi,